Today we're going to talk about electric cars for tough guys. So far, all electric cars out there are, slick and it's just kind of technology on wheels. But is there a company that would appeal to the masses? Right here in America, we buy SUVs and trucks, and we want to appeal to the tough guy kind of a personality. Well, today we're going to talk about Bollinger Motors, a company that's just about to start producing one of those, and it looks great. I am so honored to have their CEO, Robert Bollinger, on the show. We're going to bring him on in just a few minutes. We're going to talk about their company. We're going to talk about electric car movement and where it's going in general. So I'm very excited about it, and we're going to start right now. All right, if this is your first time watching this show and on this channel, please go ahead and click the subscribe button so you become a part of this community. All right, guys, let's talk about Bollinger and Bollinger B1, their electric sports utility truck. So without further ado, please welcome to the show, Robert Bollinger. Robert, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. So tell us a little bit about the concept behind your company and the truck that you're working on, when it's going to be available, and just kind of everything that we need to know about this, what I think is a pretty awesome project.
Everything. Let's see how much I can remember right now. But right now we are engineering our sport utility truck to production. It's going to take a while. So I wish we were closer to production, but that's going to be towards the end of 2019, which is still a pretty quick timetable, aggressive timetable. But our first prototype, which you see there on screen, we revealed just last July. That's the one and only prototype. That's the same prototype that you see in all the videos. All the guys in the videos are the ones who made the truck. They're the engineers, engineered it from the ground up, made it. We took it out testing it. It has a whole year of testing ahead of it as we engineer the four-door. The four-door is the first one we're going to be producing. We sent out a rendering about that a few months ago. So that's the next prototype we're working on right now. And just getting it all ready for production, talking to vendors. I'm here in Detroit right now. I opened a second office so I can meet with vendors along with our engineers and the rest of the team. So just a ton of work to optimize the truck, get the vendors in line, find a place to assemble it, and all of the above.
And this is not your typical electric car. We're talking about this is an off-road vehicle that's tough and rugged, and it's got actually pretty good range as well.
Yeah, so basically what the truck is the idea of it was to put everything in one truck that you want and could use. So it's like a multi-purpose tool. So it's got all the off-road credentials like crazy. It's more ground clearance than anything that's on the road. And it can hold lumber. You can plug, power tools into it, not just laptops. You can go anywhere with it. You can convert it. It's an incredible truck. So it's kind of the opposite of anything else that's out there on the road. And that's the whole point of it is basically when I went to go buy an electric vehicle, there wasn't anything I could really, really use or really, really wanted. I test drove a lot of them. They're all great. Everything's got to go electric and it will, but, this is basically just made the truck that I wanted to buy. This the end result of why we're doing this.
So tell me who you are targeting. I kind of already mentioned that, but who is the person you're targeting with this truck, with this sports utility truck, as you call it?
Well, it's basically but the reason we call it sport utility truck, we started calling that from the beginning is because SUVs, even though it's a sport utility vehicle, all the ones on the road now are basically high riding sedans, lots of luxury. And so we just want to bring the truck back into it. So there's something where you can just use it the way you want to use it. It's all hands on. It's tough. It's rugged. It's the one truck you can keep for the rest of your life. It's made out of aluminum. It's not going to rust. And so it's basically just the truck for anyone who needs to do something. So that's a big, broad stroke there. But the biggest response we've gotten is from off-road people for sure. So former Land Rover users, Jeep owners, of course, just anyone who wants to take it out on the hills and on the rocks and just do whatever they want with it.
Oh, that's pretty cool. And obviously the you guys already taking reservations, right? And have quite a few of them.
Yeah, so the night of the reveal, we revealed the truck last July. It seems like years ago now with how much we've already gotten
Yeah.
done. But last July 27th, we revealed it in New York City at a private event. We had a lot of press there. We got a lot of great press, and we turned on the reservation button on our website. So we got 10,000 reservations. I think it was within 30 days or something. So now we're up to, that was a big explosion of reservations that we got. Now we're over 16,000. So that's just hand raising. There's no money down right now, but you give us all of your details and you're kind of in line and we keep your spot in line. So later when we announce the price and in more details in our production schedule, at some point later in the year, be taking actual deposits and we'll be sending out that, option to put down a real deposit and make a real order to the first people who made the reservation already.
Now that's pretty cool. So I mean, yeah. By the way, the concept of the prototype really has been around for almost a year. So and I have covered the story, so my audience is pretty familiar. And by the way, guys, you don't have to go Google this. I will put the reservation page in the description of this video. I can't imagine why anybody wouldn't. This is a, again, great real truck with a real range of 200 miles. And you don't have to put any money down. I think it would be silly not to. So anyway, check out the description of this video. And I mean, I like the concept of not having to put money down because I mean, I don't want to put anybody down, and I'm obviously a huge Tesla fan. But the fact that people have put their money down and had to wait 2 or 3 years, sometimes people thought it would be a year and not 3, and it turned out to be 3. It's kind of a deal breaker for some people. So I think it's really cool that you guys are just kind of saying, hey, get in line, and we'll figure it out later.
Yeah, because the truck was completely made by the people you see in the video. So we have a small team. I have an insanely incredible team of engineers and everyone in the team is amazing. So we built that truck in basically a year in upstate New York. And when we revealed it, it was like perfect. It was a fully working prototype and not just like a kind of proof of concept. It was fully working. So we tried to use as many components in the final production as possible. Since then, we have changed our battery cell provider and a number of things. So it keeps changing and it keeps getting better. We're still a ways away from production. So we did not want to do that. We did not want to take people's money way too early. And everyone's asking for the price right now. And I understand we have to get that out there. And then take money a little bit later than that, because we don't want to hold your money too long. But even then, it'll be some time. But the idea is like any other startup company now, those first orders and that first deposits that are given to us will help us stay around and help us become a company. So those first 1,000 people, let's say, that we take deposits from are going to be, part of the family in a way, because otherwise we wouldn't keep moving forward. So.
And so how many people right now are working on the truck? How many people do you have in the company?
The company right now is 8 people total, including me. So we're crazy small. But we did just sign an engineering firm last month, and we just announced that, Optimal Engineering. They're outside of Detroit here. And they have like 25, 30 years of optimization for vehicles, simulation, and lightweighting, benchmarking, body structures, electric drivetrain integration. So they are the big chunk of people and talent that we needed to for our team to use to get the truck to the next level. So my team is crazy talented and amazing, and so is this company. So together we're going to get it to production.
And being here in Silicon Valley, for part of the Silicon Valley for 20 years, I've learned that sometimes a team of 8 people can do a better job and do it faster than a team of 200 people. Right. So actually, I can see this happening. So, all right. So let's talk about where are you going to produce this car, and when do you believe it will be in production and the first ones will be, in the hands of the new owners?
Yeah, our timeline is to start production in the fourth quarter of 2019 for deliveries in early 2020. And we were looking for a third-party manufacturer to make them for us, and then make probably a larger quantity than made sense at first. So we have brought that down, and we're very sensible. We're very smart about it. So we're going to have a smaller number of vehicles at first. So that's going to affect the price some. But we're going to have a smaller number of vehicles at first, and we want to assemble them ourselves. So we're looking at buildings right now where we can do the hand assembly ourselves. So we want to be in charge of the quality and oversee the final product completely ourselves. So we'll have major vendors giving us big components. We'll find someone who can do the chassis for us. We'll find someone who can do the body in white for us, to our specs, to our quality standards, all that kind of stuff. The best vendors that are out there in Detroit. That's why I'm here now, and half the team to line up these vendors. Then it'll all come together in our facility, and we'll put it together ourselves by hand.
And and this is, I guess, where I think that right now is a great time for just electric car movement in general, because I was, because you can do this, right? You can start a company and have all these great vendors, and they will even compete with each other to create parts of the car for you, so you don't have to make everything from scratch. Like, right. I was talking to Henrik Fisker at CES, and he said, well, this is exactly why original Fisker failed, because they had to do everything on their own, and one vendor they had making batteries crapped out, and that's it. Right. Now it's kind of a new era where there are industries built around electric cars, and it helps.
Right. Well, I kind of joke that the electric vehicle industry is still kind of like the wild, wild west. There are many components out there that you need in your vehicle that are made by just, that component. There might be just one on the market that fits what you need. So if you think about, internal combustion engine, the whole industry, they've been around for 100 years. There's thousands of vendors and tons of companies that have been competing against each other for years. And so that product is amazing. It's cheap. It's available right now. So there's just, hundreds of thousands of vendors like that. For electric, you might have one or two for certain components, and then you're kind of tied with it. So if you go out there, I can see why some companies might want to make everything themselves, but that's when you get into the whole thing where you need to raise $100 billion, and then you're 10 years out. And that's exactly what we don't want to do. So what we're doing is that we're working with vendors to find the best components for us, seeing where we can have them make it specially for us. And a certain number of off-the-shelf parts that are fully vetted, fully road tested, all that kind of thing. But a certain number of off-the-shelf parts. But our DNA is the truck that we created. It's the chassis layout. It's the whole engineering of the chassis, the suspension, the body, the architecture that allows the pass through the middle, and all that kind of stuff. So that's all from our team, from our team of engineers and me. And it's just that's our DNA. So where we get our cells from, we just change our battery cell vendor. So it's a much more dense battery cell, but the battery pack will be our design. So,
and this is why you just announced the longer range, correct? Because it was a little bit less before. Now it's 200 miles.
Right. The truck came out a little heavier than we were hoping, even with aluminum. And then, a big part of that is always the batteries, of course, for electric. And then we just said, well, if you're going to buy this truck and it's going to be electric and low volume, so it's not going to be cheap, you're going to want it to be able to go at least 200 miles. So that was kind of our line in the sand for it to go 200 miles. So it's going to be, if you do city, it's going to be much higher than 200. And if you do only highway, it might be a little lower with this drag coefficient. So, but yeah, that's our combined EPA standard is 200 miles minimum.
Okay, and that's how it is with electric cars. Obviously, it's kind of opposite of gas cars, which I think is fine. All right, well, I mean, listen, it's really exciting. I wanted to talk to you just about generally about just where we at with the car movement right now, where we at with just on one hand we're making so much progress, on another hand we're still very much behind. So let's talk about it in just 1 second. But before that, I just wanted to remind my viewers that this show and this channel is sponsored by Avanex. If you're looking to shop there, there's a discount code in the description of this video. Just like the reservation, if you want to get your name on the reservation links for Bollinger, please go ahead and do that. It's also in the description of this video. Okay, so let's talk about where we're at with electric cars right now, because obviously lots of progress was made since like 10 years ago, right? We just had, Tesla Roadster and a Nissan Leaf. Really, that's what we have. And now we have so many startups, so many manufacturers are being dragged really into this business, and some of them are doing actually a good job. But nevertheless, I've been looking at sales report at the end of every month, obviously reporting on the show, and we went from 1% of global sales to like 1.2% of global sales. you know when when do you think we'll start winning? Like, when do you think we'll start really putting our name on where, on this on the market, where people will actually consider buying electric cars and believe that they're not only an option, but they're a better option on top of that?
Right. Well, there's a lot of polls taken, stuff like that, where there's a huge number of people who have said that this is their last gas vehicle that they own now, that their next one is going to be electric. So I think there's a lot of waiting until it gets to that point where people want things. A huge thing that has stopped people has been the whole range anxiety thing, which I think is just, almost 100% on base because most people drive 30, 40 miles a day. And so these vehicles that get now 120, 200 miles range is plenty. But anyway, I think that the biggest way that we'll suddenly have a big chunk of electric cars out there is when it can make money for the big three. And right now, all electric vehicles that are sold on the road are at a loss because of the cost of electric that it is now. So when you have a Model X and a Model S, with the options up there, above $100,000, and that's where it's starting to pay for itself, especially because Tesla is still very, very low volume compared to the big three. So I think, the Bolt, all these vehicles, it's well known that they are being sold for less than what they cost. So you're just not going to have OEMs jumping on it that much. They're doing it because of regulations, because they have to. So at some point, batteries have to come down to that point where it just explodes. And, a lot of people are projecting that's, in 2 years, somewhere around that time. So is it when batteries change to the next chemistry after the current one? You hear a lot of talk about graphene and solid state and stuff like that. So there's only so much density you can squeeze in those little cells before a major change has to happen. So it's something big's got to change before it becomes massively available.
Well, let me ask you this. You're talking about big three. I mean, do you think they're even trying? Because it sounds like Tesla and other companies like yours that are innovating and kind of getting everybody excited and kind of taking sales away from them are really dragging them into this. And yes, we have some success. Like Jaguar I-Pace, I think, is a good example of that. And the fact that it still has a grill kind of tells you how they're still grasping, right? So do you think that will actually be going to be big three, or is it going to be companies like yours and obviously Tesla and other startups that are basically producing a product from scratch, so you guys have an actual, a clean slate, and therefore making better cars and just taking their shares away from them?
Yeah. Well, I think to the point back to where like 8 of us made this truck in the middle of nowhere in upstate New York, I think it was necessary to be away from stuff and just say, how hard can it be? and just make it. And so we came up with something that's not out there because we just said we didn't have any accountants on the staff at the time. We do now. We have to get to this price point. So, but yeah, we just went for it. We have a lot of expensive things on our truck because we want them on there, and wheel portal gear hubs and stuff like that. So, innovation, I think, does happen outside of huge companies usually, but really to have a vehicle in every dealership and have many of them. If you drive by a Jeep dealership, there are 15, 20 Jeeps sitting there waiting to be sold. I mean, that's crazy. Just that if you just had that number of electric vehicles sitting at the dealerships around, that's already more than all electric vehicles that have ever been sold. So it's just a completely different scope of size and production that probably the big three are capable of. I mean, Tesla, we all know about their production issues right now when they're getting there. But in order to make 250,000 vehicles a year and stuff like that is a whole other game. So, and I think you need the billions of dollars behind you and the other vehicles paying for it to really be able to get there. So,
okay, I mean, fair enough. And I obviously I believe it's still going to be up to Tesla and everybody else who are just starting out, and they're actually going to take a big share of the chunk and continue going and drag the rest of the companies in there. I think that's what's going to happen. But what I know, and which kind of brings me to the next thing that I was going to ask you. We talk about US and Canada and Europe, but really, when I look at car sales, and a lot of people don't know this, that if you look, people ask, well, who sold the most cars this month, electric and plug-in hybrid, like if we group them together? Is it Tesla? Is it Nissan Leaf? Is it Chevy Bolt? But it's actually BYD and Bike, the companies that, Chinese companies that no one ever heard of, right? And China has not only created a bunch of their own companies, including NIO, and also invested in a lot of companies that are here, like Lucid Air, Lucid and Lucid Motors, Faraday Future, and so forth. Do you think China will actually be able to lead the rest of the world into this, or do you think they will continue having kind of their own market share and it's still going to be pretty separate, like kind of it is right now? What are your thoughts about on that?
Do we have any Chinese gas vehicles in the US? China doesn't really export cars here at all, but I do believe they're going to be the world leaders in the percentage of electric vehicles on their own road, for sure. They're probably already leading that now, right? So I think they made a very orchestrated attempt as a country to do that. And of course, their market with government and business all kind of wrapped together as one. They can just mandate it and make it happen, kind of thing. So I think they're definitely going to be the leaders in that. Most of the cells for batteries are made in China, so they already have factories set up for large scale production. We have the Gigafactory here. We're going to need non-branded battery factories here as well. So we're going to need Panasonic and LG to make their own factories here. And I think they will, and I think they'll do that again when it gets over a certain tipping point. So, and that's probably going to be soon too. So if we have a lithium factory in China and one in the US, one in Europe of large scale, then you got your supply base there. In America, you have when BMW went to the Carolinas, you had vendors making entire factories right next to them. So there's the whole supply chain that has to happen. So I think all of that is building up behind the scenes. I think a lot of the automotive companies have their electric drivetrain engineers working on things that will be announced probably a year from now and such. So it's all building and it's all behind the scenes. I think we're going to have a big explosion of more vehicles soon.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm definitely hoping, and I have a lot of hope for new technologies that are kind of coming out there, like battery swap and battery leasing, and something that kind of answers a lot of doubts that people have. Yeah. And like the Renault Zoe, something we've been talking about on my show for the last few days, unfortunately is leading everybody in the wrong direction there. But all right, so let me ask you about this. Obviously, self-driving technology has been a big part of electric cars, right? Even though it's really completely separate, really, because Tesla incorporated them first, I guess. And you guys don't have that, right? Because I mean, obviously, it's not. Nobody would want to be self-driven through a mountain climb, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Kind of a weird thing. So it's funny because we got that question so many times: is it autonomous? And somehow electric and autonomous became combined, and they're just both coming around at the same time, where the whole automotive thing is being disrupted, right? So our vehicle is purposely opposite of what's out there. We don't have a touch screen. We don't have there's no way for you to talk to your B1 from far away. It's a self-contained truck. And it's all hands-on. It's like a tool. So we definitely have no interest in going autonomous in any kind of way, even though that's great and wonderful for an entire industry on the side. And they'll get there. Then some rocky things and definitely unfortunate accidents. But we're not interested in autonomous at all. We're 100% electric. The efficiency of electric and how it's a better drivetrain for off-road and better drivetrain for trucks is why we use it. So we care about the environment. It's all about zero emissions as well, but it's really about like, what are all the best things we can put into a vehicle if we're making it from the ground up to do the stuff we want it to do? And electric was just the obvious choice.
Right. Well, the reason I ask you, actually, I wanted to get your opinion about it. You mentioned the two accidents that obviously just happened. One with Tesla, literally a few miles away from me here on 101, and one with actually a guest car, which was a Volvo for Uber. But obviously, that all of that fell on our land, right, of electric cars. Do you think that technology is ready? A lot of times on the show, we're discussing, with a lot of people, a lot of feedback from my audience is that maybe autopilot shouldn't be called autopilot. Maybe this should be what it is, just driver assistant. And what are your thoughts about it? Do you think we're ready? Do you think we should just kind of like work on this for a while and then present it, or should we scale it as we are right now? All bad publicity and all.
Right, right. Well, the end result, the people who are in favor of autonomous driving, of course, is the end result is that's going to save thousands and thousands and thousands of lives when every car is autonomous, and nobody has their hand on the steering wheel, and that's quite some ways away, right? So there's going to be it's hard to talk about people dying, and we don't even necessarily know what really happened in the Tesla thing yet, do we? But
we kind of do. We unfortunately we kind of do, because basically, so basically the autopilot was on, and there are quite a few videos that people either drove on the same road right here or on other similar roads, and the autopilot does go that way. Obviously, and this is where I say autopilot, just don't tell people it's autopilot. Just tell them it's an assistant or co-pilot, because then they start picking their noses and getting on their phones, and then but yeah, unfortunately, we do know what
I
happened.
asked this question to someone who was a big proponent of autonomous at the New York Auto Show last year. And I mentioned, like, well, how, I live up in the country, and I'm like, how does the vehicle know on a snowy night, or even not a snowy night? In the early spring when the snow is melted, the ground, the road, everything is the same ground. So how does it know where the road is and isn't? Like each GPS, how does it just know a foot difference? Because that could mean all the difference, right? And so he went on to many, many technologies about how all the vehicles would be sharing their data. And so each time a car drives down those roads, it holds the data for the next vehicle. So every single road would be micro mapped, is the idea down the road. So I think there's a lot of years ahead before this becomes something we can truly trust. So we're staying completely out of it because it's not something we want for our vehicle, but hopefully no one else gets injured along the way. So.
Yeah, and I can't imagine people who would buy your car, again, would not want to be behind the wheel and drive it anyway, right? So it's like when they put autonomous driving into sports cars. Why? Okay, right. So let's get back and talk just a little bit more about your car. And, I've always said this, we can't really sell these cars as a concept, right? As, well, this is good for environment, it's good for your children. Somehow people don't very small number of tree huggers like myself react to that, right? But most people, until you just offer them a better product, they're not going to budge. And now electric cars are offering a better product. Let's talk about your particular, B1 truck. Now, I already know the answer, but I still want you to say it. Tell me, how you come up to the guy who's driving a truck or whatever, or an SUV. How do you sell this to him? How do I sell it to my friend saying, hey, dude, you should buy this Bollinger B1 thing?
Yeah, well, first of all, it beats anything that's out on the road, regardless of electric or gas. So it's got almost twice the ground clearance of Jeeps. It's the torque that's available instantly for off-roading or just driving down the road. Instant torque is amazing for off-road capability. The fact that we can raise it and lower it manually, up and down 10 inches wheel travel. So it's self-leveling. It's a class 3 truck. It's going to come in around 5,000 pounds. So as a class 3 truck, it's engineered for a 10,001 pound GVWR. So that means you can put 5,000 pounds in it. So it's just an incredible workhorse. So I always think of it as like Tesla made electric sexy, and we're making electric useful, if you will, and tough and rugged. So it's about what do I need to do today? You go about having fun in the truck, and you're driving home. You say, "Oh man, I need those 2x4s. I'm redoing my bathroom. I forgot to do that this weekend." So you stop, and you can put in 12-foot, 16-foot, 2x4s down the middle. You can do anything you want with it. So it's a full utilitarian truck, and it does everything for you. So I think it's one vehicle that you can buy and have it for the rest of your life. And so that's what we want people to do. Is this is the last vehicle you need to buy. And later, our battery pack is mounted from the bottom. It's in its own battery box. Later, 10 years down the road, batteries are a completely different world, and we start making the B1 with those batteries. We want to offer, a purchase to come and buy the new technology and just keep this truck for the rest of your life. So.
And if I can add, obviously the cost of electricity is less than cost of running a gas guzzler truck. On top of that, there's less moving parts, right. So you're not gonna have to do fix it as often or ever. I don't even remember. I haven't driven a gas car in a while. Was oil changes? I remember, right? The transmission fluid, all that stuff. So none of that, and I think that goes for every electric vehicle. Right. And the reason I'm excited about is yours as just part of a support of this movement. I mean, this is what this whole channel is about, is because it also reminds me of this a company that's converting the Corvettes into electric Corvettes, and it's just like has a better performance, right? Crap, the name of it, Genovation, right? Genovation. So this is a great way to prove to people who are probably the biggest doubters, saying like, okay, not only are we making great cars, we're going to make your type of cars, which is SUVs and trucks, better than you have right now from Ford and GM and so forth, and you're going to love it, and we're going to price it at the same time, and you're going to spend less money on maintaining them and fueling them. And I think this is why I'm excited about your company, right? Like we can, and again, trust me, I have 2 Teslas, I love it, right? But there's only so many people gonna, buy into the beautiful, expensive flat screen stuff. Right. Most of the people need to see this, and I'm showing it because I see it on my screen again, your B1, in order to say, yes, this is what I want, this is what appeals to me, I can just have a better car than I have right now for less. And that's why I'm excited about it. So
if you look at car sales, all sedans, all gas-powered sedans are going down in sales, sometimes double digits. And all sport utility vehicles and trucks are going up. So the entire population is moving towards higher, towards SUV type of vehicles. So almost all the electric vehicles out there are sedans. So they're just in the wrong category, for the way the trend is going right now. So we like to think we are out there first with a truck that's like this, and there's still so much to do, but we're excited. We work on it day and night, and it's what we live and breathe. So.
Absolutely. And listen, I'm sure we can talk for a long time, but I know you're a busy guy and you got to go. But thank you so much for coming on the show. I hope to, actually meet you in person one of these days at one of the car shows. Maybe at one of them. I'm going to be at a layout show. I'm sure maybe I'll see you there. But thank you so much for sticking around. And I'm sure this is not the first and the last time we're actually going to talk. So I really, really appreciate it.
I totally appreciate it. Thanks a lot for having me on.
All right, guys, and of course, if you want to make sure that you get your hands on this B1 sports utility truck, the description of this video has the link to the reservation page. There's absolutely no deposit that you need to put in, so I would get yourself on the list right now. I know I already done it a while back, of course, so because I'm really, really excited about this company. I'm sure we've covered them before. We will continue covering them again, of course, because they are what I believe is the future of what we want, where we want this whole thing to go. Let me remind you that I'm going to start a live streaming once again. It's going to be on Patreon. It's going to be reposted on YouTube. Probably starting Monday. Thank you for those of you who support me in that, and also many more interesting people coming up in the next few weeks. Rich Rebuilds will be here, Zach and Jesse, and of course we're going to do my Tesla adventure in a couple of weeks. So thank you so much for joining me once again. Check out Bollinger, link to their reservation list. Check out their website, check out their videos. They're really, really cool, as you've probably seen on the screen as we were talking. Thank you so much to my guest, and I will see you guys tomorrow for our weekend recap. And of course, remember to stay charged.